Welcome Justice Yvonne Mokgoro to the African Women in Law Legacy Project. It is an honor to have you with us here today to share your extraordinary life story and your groundbreaking accomplishments. South Africa is a place very close to my heart, rising from apartheid to Nelson Mandela and independence, a story I know well, and you were a part of that great liberating story and that struggle. One of the great honors of my life was to meet one of your colleagues on the South African Constitutional Court, Albie Sachs, where we worked together to do an induction for the new Supreme Court in Kenya several years ago. Welcome, Justice.
Thank you so much, Judge Williams. It is my honor really to be interacting with you today and with the audience. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, there's no way we could do this series without you. I can't possibly share with the audience everything you've done. I would take up all the time for our conversation, but I want to cover the highlights. You were the first woman to serve on the bench in South Africa and the first woman on the Constitutional Court. You served from 1994 to 2009. Before that appointment as a lawyer and an academic, you fought for independence and human rights. You have extensive experience in teaching and training constitutional, comparative, criminal, private, and human rights law, teaching not only in South Africa, but in the United Kingdom and the United States. Your entire career, you fought against systemic discrimination and oppression. You've been a champion of women, children, gay rights, an opponent of the death penalty, and recognized for your dedication to ensuring justice for all. You earned your bachelor's and a master's degree in South Africa, and then an additional LLM or master's degree from University of Pennsylvania. The number of honorary degrees and awards and leadership positions you've held really just amazing. It seems to me there should be 3 of you, not 1 of you. And so my first question is, what are you fighting for now? What are you standing up for now? I know that you're currently on the Namibia Supreme Court helping out there, and also the Lesotho Court of Appeals. In addition to that, what are you fighting for? What are your priorities now?
Judge, as you know, I have retired from the Constitutional Court of South Africa. And while retirement from that court, where judges are appointed for life, really means that you never stop working, you never stop fighting for access to justice, constitutionalism, until you leave this world, because you are appointed for life. So what I currently do, I am intrinsically involved in the work of civil society, chairing the Constitutionalism Fund, which is a civil society organization which aims to make real the promises of the South African Constitution, so that, amongst others, I continue to fight to make the constitutional rights, which are protected in the Constitution, part of the reality, the everyday reality of everyday regular people. I find myself sometimes doing work which people sometimes see as the work of social development, where I try through my civil society work, which I do on the side, other than still fighting for constitutional rights in the courts where I sit. I work with regular people on the ground to make them understand the rights that they need to assert, trying to give them a voice or trying to elevate and give them agency of their own needs, so that we hear from them what their needs are, as opposed to impose on them and determine what they need. So other than working in the courts, I also work in civil society and assist organizations with the work that they do, particularly in the social justice area.
Of course, you were not born with a gavel. A robe was not your first garment, or a wig. And in fact, that dedication to the people on the ground, it seems to me, came from how you grew up. You were the second of 9 children. You grew up in extreme poverty. Your dad was a railroad laborer. Your mom was a washerwoman. What did they instill in you? What lessons did they give you so that you have never forgotten that? You still remember everyday people. You work with everyday people. What did your parents teach you that has helped guide you throughout your life?
Judge, I think you are absolutely correct. I always say to people, we might not have had everything that we needed as we grew up, having been born in a family so large with parents who were just regular workers. The values that they instilled in us was certainly, almost like every family, hard work for what you want. They always used to say, whatever you do, do it so well that when you look back, you feel good that you have done that. And do not even begin with chasing the money, because if you do the best you can, you will get recognition for the work you do, and the money will follow. Hard work, the need to inform yourself through education was always first prize for my parents. They used to say, we will do the best we can to give you the best you can get. Yes, hard work got us to get scholarships, and through scholarships, we managed to attain the level of education that each of us could attain. So the only way to get out of the poverty that apartheid has designed for you is to get an education, to arm yourself with knowledge and work hard and do the best you can wherever you do.
And you certainly applied those lessons. You were a brilliant student. As I understand it, you spoke 7 languages. Just blows my mind, coming from a place like the United States, where I am sad to say we generally are not bilingual. We are just speaking English. I think it's really a tragedy in our American education system. But 7 languages with that scholarship. And originally you thought that you wanted to be a social worker, but your focus changed to law. Why did you decide to be a lawyer, and who encouraged you to become a lawyer?
It is my experience, Judge, that drove me into the legal field. I had initially registered actually for an education degree, in the sense that at some stage too, I wanted to become a teacher, having gone through a Catholic school education where we were taught by women teachers, women nuns. And also at some stage, after realizing that I might not want to be a social worker, I could be a teacher. I wanted to be a teacher, and I studied a degree in education at the university when I registered there for the first time. But once when we were on break at home, I had an altercation with the local police where they were arresting a young man just in terms of the loitering regulations, and I objected vehemently, and they arrested me for speaking up on behalf of this young man. And I met Mangaliso Robert Sobukwe, who was then banished to my hometown, Kimberley, and he had been released not so long ago from Robben Island and banished to my hometown. And he was practicing law in my hometown, having studied while he was jailed at Robben Island. So he represented me after having been charged for the obstruction of justice, having spoken up, against the police on behalf of this young man. And when I had a conversation with him after I was discharged and the charge was withdrawn, I lamented the notion that in my hometown, we don't have enough lawyers. And I made the mistake by saying, we don't have enough young men who go to university to study law. He looked at me and thought and said, I should never hear you say that ever again. Who says the law is confined, legal study is confined to men? I said, well, what I see is that all the lawyers around are men. I've never seen a woman lawyer. And he said, well, in this city, let's start with you. And when I went back after the break, I went back to university, I changed my registration and I registered for a legal degree and continued my studies in law.
And that was a situation, I think, when you were arrested. Did you have a baby with you?
I had a baby. I was married at the time because I stayed at home for about 4 years. During our time, the university campuses were centers for student political activity. We were protesting all the time. We were quite revolutionary when we were at university, and they would constantly close down the university, readmit students, and only readmit those that they thought were the good students and exclude the so-called ringleaders. So at some stage, I've stayed at home for about 4 years. I took a break for 4 years, and that is the time when I worked as a salesperson in retail, and I also worked as a nurse at some stage, actually before I went to university. So I got married and I had a baby, and I was arrested on that day with my baby on my back, and they simply ripped the baby off my back and threw me into the police van. I was walking with a friend, and a friend of mine took care of the baby and took the baby home.
It is, to me, the critical piece of how you change a society, always thinking of others and what you can do, whatever skills you have, because a lot of our audience will be lawyers or judges, but everyday people can make a difference in the life of anyone in their village. You know, to see someone hungry and to provide a meal, or to see a child that needs some direction, or to do something at the school to volunteer, or to go to the clinic and volunteer, or do things in your church that can make a difference. There are just so many ways, and no one can really pick for you what is the best way. You have to look at what's going on in your own life and figure out how you can give back. But we all have that obligation to give back, and certainly Justice, you are in a really words, I am without words when I try to describe how your whole life has been, and that even now, when you could sit back and relax and enjoy all that you have done, you continue to keep marching and stepping forward. And so I thank you so much for sharing your life story, for sharing the lessons that you've learned with all of us. Their words and your actions will remain with us and will guide us as we all work toward equal justice and giving voice to the voiceless. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Judge Williams. It was a pleasure talking to you.
The pleasure was all mine.